Hello and welcome to a well overdue episode of Casting Views, a podcast where me and Dan, introduce yourself,
Me, I'm Dan. Hi.
talk about things that kind of interest us and well cast some views on it. We've had a little bit of a break, probably noticeable. Is it noticeable in the schedule?
Yes and no. Yes, in that we didn't record a new episode, but no, that we put out a previous one, a collab we did with the
Yeah,
cultworthy.com. So
I feel like I've broken the fourth wall now with
yeah,
with the
yeah,
listeners,
you got to go
unfortunately.
with it. Just stay with it.
Yeah, I've just got to
Style it
accept
out.
it.
Style it out.
Well, today we have a very, very, very special episode. And we were going to think about hinting it and teasing it, but I feel like I'm going to get straight into it because today we have a very special guest. He's an Arizona based, bona fide international recording artist who you may know from such songs as Bad Things, Hurricane, and the all new, recently released single, Right Back Again. It's SeanLoui.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Amazing to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like this is potentially a way for me and Dan to also plug ourselves because me and Dan have always been fond of our own singing voices. So I feel like if we're collabing on the podcast in this way, at some point there will have to be a track that comes out with all three of us on it together.
We should make a TikTok dance.
Yeah, well, there you go. We underutilized TikTok, so there we go.
We could create like a viral TikTok sensation as well, maybe one song of those songs that everybody's doing dance for. I feel like we don't want to do that.
I'm probably less of a dancer though. I'm just
That's
putting
so
it out
funny.
there now.
Having listened to some of the songs, number one that I mentioned in the intro for you, I know that you've got a really cool sound about you, and I just want to say, Hurricane to me hit a real chord with me because it threw me back to like an 80s vibe. I had Grand Theft Auto Vice City in my mind. It just gave me such good like summer, you're kind of in a park chilling with your friends, and that's the soundtrack that you get in the background. That was kind
That's
of the
so
immediate
funny.
thought.
So how'd you hear that song? I thought we took that song down. How'd
Yeah,
you
no, I
hear
think I
it?
listened to that one on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Forgot to take that one down. Yeah, it's a song from my old album, and I actually took the album down because it's good. That's a good album, but it doesn't sound like what I sound like now, you know. So I took it down. But you're like the 16th person that mentioned that song. I was in Mexico, and some kid was like, "I love that song, Hurricane. I can't believe you took it down. Like I found it on YouTube," and I was like, "Oh yeah." And I guess I just forgot I need to take it down. But yeah, it's a cool song, man. Yeah, I love the vibes of those 80s vibes. The producer Robbie did a really good job on it. Yeah, I'm really proud of it.
But I've also sort of on a couple of notes I've made, and I think I may have mentioned sort of Lou and I generally come to an episode knowing what we're going to discuss, but without preparing each other. And it's amazing how similar sometimes we have things written down. I've written down as well that your sound is well. It's there is a mix of sounds, but I was listening to Outer Space, which I think was a great track, and that's got quite a funky 80s. I want to say retro, but I don't mean that. You know, a lot of people could think of retro, you know, in a bad way. But I think it's got a real nice sound to it, and I think what Lou was saying to a lot of your tracks, there's a feel like you could put it on, you could be with a group of friends or on your own somewhere, you could stick it on, and it's applicable to kind of any kind of environment like that.
Cool. Oh wow, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the sound is just immaculate in my mind. I guess, kind of in terms of a little bit about you and kind of your start into music and that sort of thing. What were the kind of influences that brought you into music?
I feel like my journey is very typical. Where like for someone in the music industry, it's like your family was doing music or you're brought up in church, and that was like part of it's like my main story. You know, family was very musical. My grandmother used to sing with the Platters and like Temptations, and like they used to come over to my grandmother's house all the time and party. And my mom would tell stories of how Temptations and Platters would come over and stuff. Um, and then yeah, then just going into like a church environment, performing, playing constantly, you kind of get the itch, and you're like, man, I think I can do this like for real, and like actually, put my own music out. So from there, yeah, I just started joining bands. I was in a touring band for a little bit called Signals, and then right after the band broke up, I left and I went to Berlin to record the song "Tell Me," and that's what kind of started everything. Well, I had that song "Wasted," which is on there,
Mhm.
but I feel like "Tell Me" was the real like push, like, oh hey, it's actually like this can actually really work, you know?
And you mentioned sort of that your mother was in kind of like in and around music. So did
Yeah.
you feel a pressure to follow in that, or was it actually easier? Did you feel it was kind of a nice helping hand there to help you along in it, or did you feel there was a little bit of pressure?
Um, I think I think once we made a decision to do music, because like like all kids, at least like in the states, like you either do sports, or you do something artistic, and so after we would choose to do music, there was pressure because now like you can't just like, excuse my language, but you can't just like half-ass it, right? You got to like really practice and like get really better. So that, and to live up to those standards of where my grandmother's been, like her ceiling, into wanting to be that wanting to be that your my foundation. A little bit of pressure for sure, but I got away from that because I'm older now. I don't live at home, so I don't have to have that so much pressure. But yeah, there was for sure some pressure.
And so as well, do you know growing up, because you mentioned kind of like a church environment with music as well. Do you feel like that's kind of had a big note in terms of the sound that you produce now? And is that kind of the biggest inspiration that you had when you were getting into music, just because you were around it in that capacity?
Oh, for sure. There's a quote from um, an artist named Fred Hammond. He's a big gospel church, and he talked about the correlation between church music and like '90s R&B music, and so because I was in a church environment, um, a very strict one. I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music, so I had to rely on like the church, like Fred Hammond, the very gospel R&B type stuff. It really did shape my sound. It shaped how I listened to music. It definitely shaped on one of the first instruments I really got involved in musical theory with, which is like bass playing. And because Fred Hammond is a really good bass player, so all of his bass um, lines are just like unreal, man. They just sit in that pocket and they feel so good. So yeah, for sure it has. And you can hear it. You can hear it in like a lot of like the straight R&B stuff. Song "All My Love Is Yours" to even to like Hurricane. You can hear there's something different. Regarding, and it has that gospel feel to it. So for sure, it impacted my life and my musical, what I like and put in my music, very much.
I feel like we kind of miss out on that in the UK as well somehow. I feel like that
Really?
sound, yeah, it doesn't exist, because I feel like that environment of church and music being so much a part of it doesn't really exist in the same capacity here as it does in the States, to be fair. I
Oh,
feel like, yeah,
whoa.
it's kind of something we kind of miss out on, because we know that it's such a big part of culture in the States, and yet we kind of don't ever get that kind of filter through to music here, really.
Maybe I feel like you guys get it from hip hop, because like church down here is comes from a very like historical culture, like a lot of pain. The church, like the Black Southern Church, but one of the outcomes of the Black Southern Church is hip hop, and I think that's been the most um, uh, what is that export biggest
Yeah.
export for the church. So because yeah, I listen to a lot of UK hip hop and just some the stuff in the EU, just some stuff from France, and you can hear that soulfulness is translated, but it's through a hip hop lens. It's very cool, especially what the Europe has done with modern day hip hop music. It's really cool.
As well, I like the fact that you've just mentioned that you do listen to some some British stuff. Have you got any kind of favorite artists that are kind of the ones that regularly hit your Spotify or Apple Music playlist?
Streets.
Yeah,
Streets.
yeah.
Oh, I don't think
You know, what
so.
I'm talking.
Dan does.
I would probably say he's probably the one that I will pay attention to the most. But so, like hip hop artist wise, I was like this guy that I used to know. He played one of his songs. Oh, I can't remember the top of my head now. It's gonna my mind went blank. But he played one of his songs, and we are just listening to it like easily 90 times, just because you can hear a lot of the those hip hop influences inside inside his music, which made it to me feel like it was like had a gospel foundation, even though I knew he wasn't getting that sound and that feeling from gospel. He was getting from hip hop, but you can tell he studied hip hop so much that he started, obviously grabbing a hold of those influences from church music, so like streets, and then of course like I'm a big Libertines fan. I love Pete Doherty. I know he's crazy, and I legitimately understand he's crazy, but I love their commitment to each other, and I love what the music has brought out of it. Even through all the crazy stuff. Like think about it. If your partner, like your best friend tries to break into your house and steal stuff from you, and you still want to play music with them, that's a bond that will never be broken. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're still homies after that point, like that's huge.
I know it sounds like a cliche, but we've kind of mentioned it before in the podcast that in a lot of areas like sport, etc., genius is often closely entwined with craziness. They often straddle a fine line.
Yeah, there's someone made a quote, and they said, "Thank God that we had sports to have an outlet for someone like a Michael Jordan, because they said like for someone like his mentality of wanting to win so bad, he should be in war. Now imagine someone like him, and as a general who just wants to fight, all he wants to do is fight and win all the time. That it'd be catastrophic for the earth. So thank God for basketball.
It's almost good that they keep minds like that out. Yeah, it's almost a distraction to keep people that could be destructive in that way out of it.
Seriously, but you're totally right though. Like think about something like a Prince, or even like someone like Whitney Houston. There's always like either you're crazy or you have like your own demons that follow you,
Yeah,
throughout your
yeah.
music.
So who else in terms of? I mean, you said it was difficult in terms of some of the sounds you could listen to, but who else would you say is kind of like an influence to you now, or someone that you would kind of look towards in terms of past recording artists?
So like a Prince, I love the way that he approached music and the business part of it. And then
Mm.
my favorite bands in the whole world is named Mute Math, and the lead singer is Paul Meany. And Paul Meany, if you hear me, I want to do music with you. I reached out to his agent, but they're like he's so busy, and I'm like, oh, but he ended up going on tour with 21 Pilots. So, anyways, he's one of my heroes. Paul Meany, and band Mute Math. Maxwell is also a really big one, and then Eddie Kendricks from Temptations. His solo albums are absolutely beautiful. So I've been studying a lot of those, and then of course just listening to just random like Afro psychedelic music lately. I've been really into, um, and then just like old school like 70s funk, like obscure
Mm.
artists that were like have 5,000 plays, but from the
Yeah.
1970s. You know what I mean? To find like the people that they're studying, because yeah, for sure, like the people that are big, like those Marvin Gaye's, or those my mind's gonna go blank right now, like trying to think Afro funkadelic, or yeah, or Parliament funkadelic, sorry, something like that. Like they're popular and they did really good. But there's also other artists who are not as big as them, who have the same level of attention to detail, attention to their craft. So it's good to to study outside of those, outside the main brands, if you will.
And regarding your videos, so I was looking, so I've noticed that the theme is that there's a deliberate choice about having them all black and white.
Yeah.
Was that something you knew from the outset that that's what you wanted to do in terms of your visual style?
Yeah, one of my favorite photographers is Nia Bazorgi, and I like he's a main photographer. You guys look him up. He Someone asked him a question in the comments one time. He posted a photo, and they're like, when do you post when do you post color, or when you shoot in color, when do you shoot in black and white?" And he goes, "Only shoot in color when you want to say something." And I thought that was really brilliant response. So I take that exact same way. So when something, and I'm not saying I do black and white every single day. Has been, I'll say like it's a rarity for me to shoot in color, but when I do, it'll mean something. You'll notice that it has its saying to it. So I've so yeah, it's been for sure deliberate to stay in the course, because it's so easy. I saw some photos I was posting. I could add a little, add a little orange filter from Instagram, and it looked just as cool. But if I want the picture to say something more, then I'll use color. But otherwise, straight black and white. And I love it. It makes things a lot easier too, because I can just like put it in, post it, instead of try to edit it. That's it. Yeah, I
It
will
takes like
openly.
all of the stress away from any of your social medias.
It does, but to be consistent though is how it comes in. So like like yeah, sure I can do black and white now, but am I gonna do black and white like 9 months from now? You know what I mean? If I'm
Yeah.
Mm.
really am set with my goal and with intention to do black and white, so that will be the test. If you guys hear me and see me in like a year, if I'm still doing black and white, you go, you found it, you did it.
See, do you know what it is as well? In the way in which you talk about music, and even just then with the example with the music videos, it's lovely hearing from someone who genuinely cares about the craft and the way that they perceive music as a beautiful thing. Because I think that, especially with America, I don't know if my if Dan will agree with me because he's a slightly older generation than I am, obviously. But I feel like the music that we've seen kind of imported from the States at the minute went through a period where it was I'm going to say that kind of mumble rap genre, and that's kind of
Mhm.
all we saw for maybe a period of like 8 or 9 years. And all of a sudden, when I was scrolling through the music videos and I was listening to the music, it was amazing to hear something that was genuinely beautifully crafted,
Oh,
as opposed to something that was just kind of like put out like we'd been hearing from the States for probably what was
I
8 or 9
know.
years. Every musician that was in the UK top charts had a name that began with Lil for a bit.
yeah.
That was so wild time, man.
It was.
It was.
So,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dan.
No. You go for it. You go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna comment and go. Yeah, it was really wild. I'm not gonna lie to you. There was a point in my career I did think I was like, well, maybe to change my name real quick because you're trying to like, But of course, I drank too much that night. Luckily, I woke up and I was okay.
You woke up and all of the pages were Lil Sean Louis.
Yeah, 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 and it didn't sound right, so I skipped it.
No, on the video theme, I was just going to ask a question. So the ideas for videos, how do they come about? Do you kind of have that when you're writing a song? Do you finish a song and then try see what works, or do they go hand in hand?
I'll say like the song "Bad Things." That was decided as I was writing the music. I wanted to write something that meant something. I want to write a song that had a bigger theme behind it, and definitely introduce the world to my symbol, the rose, the circle of the rose. And then everything else was different. So the song "I Don't Know Why" was based off of like a world I was dreaming up, and I still want to complete the story, but it's about how in the future random spiritual occurrences start happening inside the desert. So like in the song "I Don't Know Why," a siren was found inside the desert, and she was actually trying to bring people into this lake. And I was one of the people that she stole. So it really depends. Like it has, but it's all symbolized behind the rose, which is like this the story of like of a freedom, that I believe that we all need. Um, but as far as like the video theme, it depends on the song. Honestly, in my depression is high, you'll get something like really crazy, and then if it's low, then you'll get like "Future You and Me," which is like on the yeah. So I'm kidding
So,
about the depression part, but you guys got so you guys like, oh my gosh, this guy's not well.
I was I was about to be like, did we just touch on something super
yeah.
super
Uh,
serious? I was like, me and Dan are not prepared for this.
yeah.
Well, no,
Like
because
we're
I
not.
was I was looking at the video. Is it to "All My Love Is Yours," where it was almost done like, is it the end of a relationship through FaceTime and a mobile phone?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I found that quite an interesting take. I've not kind of seen that in a video term.
That was like tough because it was right during COVID. We had to shoot it, so though we had the time to shoot it, obviously, because nothing was going on. It was difficult to like get like the Wi-Fi and the lighting right, and then there was a couple scenes that we wanted to shoot in person, but
Mhm.
again, because of COVID, like we couldn't shoot them. Um, but yeah, it's really a special video. I Someone else just tweeted recently. They were like, I love that song, my favorite song and video." I was like, "Oh, I need to like keep promoting it," but it's hard when you like when someone that has heard a song from me. I've already heard that song already at least for a year already, right? I've been working on it, like,
Yeah.
so it makes it very difficult to keep promoting something that I've already heard for a year. I'm like, come on, guys, here's something new, which is why sometimes you get those those artists that will like refuse to ever perform certain songs because they're
Yeah.
like I've played it 90 billion times. But yeah, the song is very very beautiful. I want to do part two to it, and then definitely release it out.
Okay. Something I saw in I think it was in another interview you've done was about you your release. You have a kind of a specific way of releasing records. You'll release a few singles, then an EP, then some singles. And I think I saw a quote, and tell me if this is right or wrong, but I saw a quote attributed to you saying that people don't listen to full albums anymore. Hence why you release the music the way you do.
Yeah, and I want to admit, I amend that quote and say like people don't listen to full albums from indie artists as often. So like Kendrick Lamar is going to drop an album pretty soon, right? They talked about the day. I forgot the date, but like I know I'm gonna listen to that album like front and back, right? I'm gonna hear
Mm.
the singles, but listen to the full album because it's like I'm invested in this artist. I feel like with independent artists, I think it's easier just to release singles until you get just to a level that you're comfortable with, in order to release EPs. With EPs and singles still have the same shelf life, which is like very very dangerous. So it's not dangerous, but it's like you can run out of resources very very quick, because if you put a four or five song EP out, you got to at least have visuals and content for all 4 or 5 songs. When you can just do a single and then just spread it out a little more while prepping for the next single to come out, shooting music videos and doing other stuff. So that's definitely my only way to mimic. But I do 100% believe that people are listening to singles way more because people are listening to music through playlists, and most
Mm.
playlists are not going to put your full album on. They're going to put the song they like, and that's it.
Well, it's something we've discussed, Lou, haven't we, on one of our episodes? Now, me being the older head, as he says, as Lou always likes to point out,
Oh
um,
gosh.
I've actually really got back into listening to vinyl again, and one of the reason being is because you are almost forced into listening to an album in track order, and it's like you said. I found myself. You're right. As society, it is just a pick and mix really now of music, isn't it? And that's what technology's given us the beauty to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just feel like I want to listen to that intense story that's being put out by an artist.
I think as well, obviously being the younger generation,
Eh, eh.
I think this is going to be terrible as well because I think I'm probably going to give you the last time I listened to an album, kind of cover to cover, if you will, and that was probably Cage the Elephant, and I'm pretty sure the album was called Melophobia.
I think
Um,
so, yeah.
and I think that was the last time I bought a CD as an album when it went in my car and I just didn't skip through anything. Whereas now it's true. I think that what you said with playlists, it's kind of song, a particular sound, and songs are pulled from particular albums to suit that one style of playlist. Whether it be, you listen to drill in the UK or pop or hip hop. It's all something that's kind of tailor made for a particular sound, and you miss out on hidden gems really. Because even now, that Melophobia album is one of my favourite songs. I put that album on and let it roll through even when I'm in the car still now. So I feel like I need to be putting myself in the mentality of buying a CD again, or just letting albums roll through.
It's hard, man. And even for me, like I said, I feel like it's the only artist that I'm really invested into. Like I love Mute Math, and Mute Math put out an album like today. I listen to it front to back 9 times at least, even if I don't like it, just because I'm invested into the artist. Um, I'm guessing you're a big Cage the Elephant fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's the best artist, which is great for musicians now because now you can find those people that will be invested into your EP. Now a little bit harder because I say a little bit harder because those people are now few and far between. Because again, myself and you, we love these artists, but to this day, we'll probably not listen to the full album. We'll just listen to singles. So you got it's harder to find those people. Once you find those people listen to full albums, you'll get them like Tyler the Creator sold, I think something like, don't quote me on this guy. Someone's gonna write me and go, that was an incorrect amount. Something like I want to say like 200,000 vinyls. But now that but he sold enough to where like he netted about I think $150,000 off it, which is like huge for an artist to sell that amount of vinyls. Number one, because the supply chain sucks right now. So
Yeah.
so like my question to him was like, how did you even get 200,000 vinyls when I can barely get you know 400, and I got to pay arm and leg, but also to have people that will buy it. So again, I think it's people don't listen to singles, but people, if you are a big enough artist and you have crazy hardcore fans, then I believe your fans will listen to your album cover to cover. Or maybe it's just more. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but maybe it is just more people that actually like certain types of music. So like if you're a hip hop head, you listen to that new uh, DMX record that just came out, right? Because you're a hip hop head. And maybe if you're just like you just enjoy music as a whole, then you won't dive in. You'll do a single because those are what's hitting you and what's easier probably for you. Anyways, that's my theory.
But it's interesting now because I know we're probably jumping all over the place because the thing is you'll say something and it'll trigger something in my brain and I want to ask it before we move on.
We'll come into this with a little bit of structure, and then
Yeah,
structure goes out the window. We're like, no,
5 minutes. It's something you were saying there about sort of like how do you even get all these vinyls made, etc., etc. And along with kind of like COVID, the pandemic, how has that kind of affected? Because the reason I ask is because I saw as I mentioned, I've got back into vinyl. Vinyl has become huge in the last sort of 4 to 5 years, but the complaint I'm seeing is I know one of the vinyl plants somewhere, it might even be in the States actually, I think has been destroyed as well. There was a fire. So vinyl
Yeah.
production is limited anyway. But now a lot of the big record companies are kind of hogging the vinyl production. Say, like for example, we've had a recent David Bowie release, which was 18 vinyls, and they were commandeering the plants for that. And you've got Record Store Day recently, which whilst I kind of love the idea, they're printing even more and more records each year. And
Mm-hmm.
the indie artists are struggling to get their music pressed onto vinyl because of things like that. And especially during COVID where they couldn't get out and tour. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
wondering, did has did you get impacted by the pandemic? I know we've got streaming and you could put music on there, but did it affect how you had to go about your ways?
Yeah, for sure. From like streaming to even like sending stuff out to like my international like fans. Like I think I still have the notice that says like my vinyl and some packages that were arriving in Brazil still in the tarmac.
Right, right.
um, uh, even so, like going to like to start the production, like just to find someone that was able to get it done. Is very hard. I think there's people have been adapting though. So like the last vinyl that I sent out wasn't a real vinyl. It was like something else. I forgot the type of thing it is, but it works on every vinyl player. So if I told you it wasn't a vinyl, you wouldn't even know. But it's the plastic and the way that it's printed is different. So there's been um, adaptations, to the situation. But for sure, if I wanted to do 1,000, I think someone quoted me 1,000 vinyls would be something like 15 to 20 bucks per vinyl, and it would still take 6 months, and they couldn't guarantee
Wow.
it.
Wow. Yeah.
Right, because like you get some people, someone like a David Bowie that will go, I'll pay you $50 a vinyl. And of course, the company's gonna go with them, right? Especially with large quantities, that much, because David Bowie's going to sell that for 200 bucks, and someone's going to buy it, of course.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, yeah, just you have to be just a little more savvy, right? Just a little more, I don't know way to say it, jack of all trades or something. I don't know, or smooth and just like a wolf in a sheep's den, if you will, to get stuff done for sure.
Have to be adaptable, I think. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to learn to adapt quickly. And how's it affected touring? So, because I know, I've seen that you play a lot of shows, so I guess that's also had to stop. Do you enjoy the sort of the getting up in front of live audiences and the buzz of performing live?
Yeah, it's been kind of weird recently. Because obviously we took time off, right? So I've been putting myself through the ringer, and I've been essentially playing over 100 shows this year. That's what's going to happen.
Wow.
So just get myself back into the groove of things. I do love it, but if you're being away from something you love for a long time, you may forget how much you love it, and you may forget how well you did it because you loved it. If that makes sense. So um, yeah, so I've been in the ringer. It definitely obviously impacted because I couldn't play any shows, and I think booking is booking. I said this to somebody, and they were blown away. But like now, like bands, independent bands, you have to like schedule out 6 months. That's what it seems like now. If you're doing cold calling emails without a relationship with like the venue or whatnot, or your own booking, I think it's about 6 months out is when you have to book. When in the past it was like 3 months out because there wasn't a lot of music. COVID did two things. It made music accessible to people. It made everyone think they could do it, and I believe a lot of people can still do it or
Mm.
can do it. But it definitely made things like harder, obviously, right? Because like if everyone was trying to book a show and was touring, then there's the least, and a lot of venues closed because during COVID. Then you got to fight for the scraps because obviously the big artists are going to come in, take all the biggest, get all the good dates, and then you're fighting for a Tuesday at 3 p.m.
Right.
At a local bar. I'm kidding, guys, but it's something. It's a very similar.
Yeah.
In terms of live shows, have you got one or a particular moment or a particular memory from a live performance that you did that sticks in your mind? Just either that it was brilliant or there was something that happened, or just what was your favorite live experience, or even if you wanted to shout out where you did that live performance
Yeah,
as your favorite one.
it was actually in Mexico. And it was only
Oh
because
wow.
after it just we were the first international, first non-Mexican band to play in the citywide festival. So it was like a big deal. We like headlined it. But afterward, and we were all just so like excited to like just have done this big show, right? It was like a struggle to get down to Mexico, and we did it. Got on stage and we killed it. It was great. We played in front of like 3,000 people. And it was like dope.
Wow.
So, but on the way back, which is the reason why that show was so great, because we ended up getting like pulled over and almost going to jail. Through the federales, you know. I'll say I'm not gonna say who because I think I told the story one time on an interview and I mentioned the prince's name and I don't think he liked it too much. But someone on my team had something illegal on him that rhymed with green, and he decided to toss it out at the last minute, right in front of the federales. So all of a sudden, imagine like I'm in the passenger seat and I'm like we're talking about the show, right? Because we're like whoa, because some booking agents saw us there and they're going to book you more festivals. And we're like whoa, let's do it. We did it. All right, guys. It's very very uplifting moment. So we're driving back and we're just talking. It's like myself and the piano player in the person that was driving, um, and we're driving and then we pull up to the thing. Now he had something on him, but he decides to that moment toss it out right like literally right in front of like the federales. Like I mean, they're probably less than 100 yards, and he took like the thing and threw it out. So immediately they federales like point like their M16s at us. It was demanding for us to get out of the car, right? It was so wild. So then they made us like escort us obviously into the place, and they're asking us like, is this yours? And we're like, no, no, no. And they're like they were drilling us really hard. They get the dogs out, and they're like, where'd you get this? And like, it's not ours. And they're like, hi, well, you just tossed it out the car. We just saw you, and we're like, no, right? And so luckily the piano player spoke Spanish, so he was like translating for us, right?
Yeah.
And these guys would every single chance they were trying to get us to like admit that it was ours, so that they'd go, you need to use the bathroom. I was like, yeah. So then I was like, Cody, like they're, oh, come with us. So like one guy would walk, and he goes, you're a musician, huh? I'm like, yeah. He goes, musicians smoke weed, and I was like, you know what I mean? Trying to get me into admit to something. And they're just and like every single thing, like it's ridiculous. So, anyways, long story short, we were like for sure thought we were going to go to jail, right? Because obviously they saw us, right? They saw us flick something outside the car that the car smelled like it, and because of the guy, and yeah, and they ended up like letting us go, like, and I was just like for sure I was like, oh, I'm going to jail tonight. I'm like, hey, I got to play this really cool show that I was like, I even told the piano player, I was like fam, I was like, honestly, I was like, we'll go to jail tonight, like I know we'll get out, but like if we go to jail, and obviously jail in Mexico's are not like club fed or like anything, it's gonna be rough. But I'm like, dude, like I'm stoked, like we played a really good show. But yeah, they ended up letting us out, and that was probably the show with the most. That was like oh no, we're going to jail. But the show was so cool that it didn't even matter.
Definitely memorable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
See,
No, for sure, it stands out.
That's the moment that you want the police officer or guard that pulled you over to turn around and be like, "Oh, SeanLoui, can I have a photograph?"
Well, the cool thing that they took some of my merch stuff out of the thing. They took it. So hopefully I now have some fans in the Mexican federal government.
There you go. I was going to say that the one thing I've learned from TV shows and that is you don't want to be going to prison in Mexico either.
No, it is not. Like it is not. It is not fun. And just the threat of them saying they're going to take us to jail made me go, I know it's not going to be fun. So
I love the fact that that was like performance show, but nearly went to prison in a foreign country.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so now I know. Now I'm not gonna. We're not gonna. No one's gonna have something that rhymes with green on them.
But also
Yeah.
just how unfortunate timing for it to be thrown right there and then.
Well, we told him like an hour or two before, like, hey, you need to get rid of that. He goes, I'm gonna take one more hit, it'll be fine. And I was like, and so you know what I mean? Again, like we're so stoked on the show that we said it in passing, like, hey, you should get rid of that, and not like this is the main subject we're talking about. You need to get rid of it. It was more of like, yeah, we're passing it, but yeah, it was such a wild time. But again, great show, good show.
So have you toured over here in the UK?
No, I was supposed to go on a tour. I guess I'm talking about this now. I was supposed to go on a tour in August out in Europe, but that got canceled because one of the artists, he didn't feel comfortable touring because of Russia. Thanks a lot, Russia.
Okay.
But I will be out there. So there's still talks. So I may do a show out in London. It's gonna. I'll say I'm not doing a show in London, but then I'll announce if I am when I will. If and when it does happen, it will happen in August. So just 3-4 months away.
Okay, that's good. Just putting out there, it's my birthday in August. I'm just
Oh,
saying.
hey,
So.
hey, yeah, you'll love it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was watching myself perform. I'm pretty good. So you'll get the but all seriousness, please come.
Yeah, no. If you're in the UK, yeah. I mean, Lou and I keep saying there are certain things we want to do for this podcast. Like there are things we discuss we want to go to. So yeah, I think a gig would be great, wouldn't it, Lee?
Yeah, Dan's just lining you up because it's his birthday in August. He's like, yeah, we'll come to the show, but can you come and do like a private show as well? Like,
Oh my god,
just friends and family show.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so funny.
Write us an intro and outro tune. I was going for, Lou, but it's
yeah. See, you see what I mean? Like, can't take this bloke anywhere.
Well, and you can chuck stuff out the window here. I don't think it'll be as bad as it is in Mexico either. So you can tell
yeah, I feel like British police officers are much less scary than Mexican ones. I imagine, we've all seen Narcos, and
yeah, I feel like Mexican ones because you don't know like what side they're on because you heard about like their stories of how like this like the state government will block roads for the federal government because the state government employees are actually working for the cartel in that particular state. You know what I mean? Or you go down to certain areas in the federal government, they're actually working for the cartel. So you don't know, because you don't want to offer someone money, because if you offer the one person money, like a federal employee, they will just take you to jail, because then they're like, you're not, don't try to bribe me, But luckily that didn't happen, and we got home safe. So.
Super random tangent as well, because now you've just reminded me. Did you see the viral video the video that went viral recently of the two guys? Were they traveling through Mexico and they got stopped by a cartel?
Oh yeah.
You've seen that video?
Yes, yeah.
Unbelievable. I couldn't imagine how terrifying it must have been when all of a sudden a pickup truck full of guys with guns just rolls up next to you. Number one, you struggle to speak the language. I just think I would have had a heart attack there and then.
You'd be screwed. They took like a obviously you have to go off roading in some of those areas, but they went off on a different way, right? 'Cause they went exploring a second. Is that how they got in trouble? They went exploring too much.
Yeah, I think so, because then I think that the one of them actually had family near at the time, but I think they were like off the beaten path. And then that's how the video started, wasn't it? It was like, oh my god, they have guns. I just thought I would have been like, no, I can't do this. I just there would have been no containing it.
How did that video end?
I think they ended up letting them go because in the video, you hear the cartel members use the word gringos because they realise they're like Americans. So
Oh,
they're just
these
like,
guys
right,
are
yeah,
no harmless.
yeah. They were like, we don't need to worry about these guys. It's all right, they're fine. And then they were like, don't worry, my friend. Like in broken English, I was just like, no, I would have been terrified. Would have
Oh no, yeah,
been.
because you don't know, you don't know if they're like, you don't know if you've seen something that they don't want anybody to see. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
exactly.
they're like, I gotta
Exactly.
kill
Yeah.
you. There's a story out of Mexico where this family was driving again off of the on the wrong road at night. You don't drive at night, in Mexico. Drive wrong road, and at night, Mexico, and they ended up getting a carjacked. I think they marched them all out to the into the desert, and they didn't kill them. Yes, they just marched them into the desert and then left them there, so they're off the road, just like for like 2 to 3 hours straight out with no water, and just left them. And then because they had a truck, they took their truck. But I still love Mexico, and I'm going back there again in September, so I'm stoked. Again, it's only if you go off the wrong times, or wrong places. Like there's places in LA that I wouldn't go to. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I don't need to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah,
I don't
this
need to be
is
over
true.
there.
Yeah,
And Mexico's the exact same way. So Mexico is very, very peaceful. No matter what the news says, everyone's so loving and caring there. It's awesome.
I can tell you now, though, those Mexican guards that stopped you are listening to this podcast, and they're going, "We're getting
Yeah,
him. We're getting him the next time he turns up."
they're like, I usually actually don't post them when I'm down there, because I do have stalkers. So
And to kind of plug the UK again, no, if you do come in, I mean, the UK does absolutely love live music, and I think I was saying to you a little bit earlier, they've been starved of it for a couple of years. So, I said to you, I went to it was a Liam Gallagher gig at the Royal Albert Hall, and the Royal Albert Hall, you look at it and it's a nice venue steeped in history. I think it's 150 years old. I'm not sure, but it was packed. There was some live acts who were amazing. I hadn't heard of them. They're indie bands, but I'm going to get their albums because they were great. But
oh
the
man,
minute, the minute Liam walks out and he started the first song, they converted part of the hall into standing bits, standing pits, a little bit like a mosh pit. Soon as the first song went off, pints were going everywhere. And I was thinking, this is a
oh
Royal
my
Albert Hall.
god,
This isn't an outdoor festival. And I think it's because for 2 years they haven't had like proper live music as such, and it was really just people letting their hair down. So
going crazy.
yeah, it was absolutely. I mean, I really felt sorry for whoever had to clean up that hall after us
Oh.
because there were just drinks everywhere. But yeah, lucky we were kind of standing on the seated in the outside bit, so we avoided. We didn't need an umbrella that evening for,
Oh my
for the.
god, I
But
would
yeah,
hate that.
no, but sort of like even like the little sort of intimate venues in London, like the pubs where they seat like or fit 100 people. There are a lot of bands at the moment actually sort of making a comeback from like the 90s who are doing like little warm-ups in these 100 people venues. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, like I said, I think this country just loves sort of live music, live acts. Very supportive.
Oh man, I can't wait to go out there.
Yeah, well, like I say, we've got 2 tickets already sold here, so
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, man.
Although
um,
you can't get anything that rhymes with green in this country because none of that's legal.
Oh, when there's a will, there's a way, but there is no will. I promise. I will not be doing that.
But it's true. I think that as well. I think that there's been a lot of artists. I mean, there's been a couple near us. Do you know James Bay? I think that he got a
Yeah,
start up he got a start up literally in the town that I live.
yeah, yeah,
In like on like the
really.
kind of pub stroke club circuit near me, and then his brother kind of went on the same circuit as well. But yeah, I think
Whoa.
that it's quite good. I mean, there's still live music to be fair in a lot of the pubs
yeah,
in the town that I live.
yeah.
Either with someone on a guitar with vocals. It kind of varies kind of night to night depending on when you go out. But yeah, it's kind of a better vibe to me when you've got somebody live and performing music as opposed to just like a DJ in a booth or just some backing music on a CD or something. It's a bit of a
Yeah,
different dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, no, totally. Yeah,
and
live music is so such a different energy to it,
d-
um, that
definitely.
I think brings people together for sure.
And I think so. For example, this gig I went to a few weeks ago. The warm-up acts I'd never heard of, and they're probably not ones I would have necessarily looked at, but I've come away from there, and especially when you hear them live, I think you can really appreciate an artist's value more when they're singing live. You can kind of hear what goes into a performance, and yeah, I just think with things like this is that the more chance there is to put sort of these independent sort of bands out there, I think the better.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Um, and kind of on this now, along this theme, there's that line between artists who have kind of, like Lewis said, they've grown up either playing in the circuit and kind of struggling to get music heard. And then you've got, on the flip side now, you've got a lot of these reality shows, talent shows, and people that go get famous because they put a 30-second TikTok video out, makes them viral. Do you? It's kind of, what's the wording? Do you think there's anything right or wrong about either approach? Because I'm always one like saying, I think if an artist or a band have kind of risen up trying to play through the club scene and then break it, they've absolutely made it and they've earned that. But then if someone struck it lucky on a TV show, would an artist like who's gone through the club scene not necessarily look down on it, but feel aggrieved at that?
Um, I think that because the internet and because reality TV shows, there's not different avenues for someone to reach their goal. So let's say someone's like, I want to play in front of 4,000 people every single night. They can do it through reality TV show. The contracts are a lot different. You start going down to nitty gritty. But I don't think people should look down on it. Like, would I do it? No, because my goals are different, and I choose not to use that avenue in order to get to my goals. Right. Every single avenue has its down downfall. Let's say like someone like a reality TV show, the contracts that you sign are going to be astronomically more in the favor of number one, the producer who
Yeah,
like you're of the show that you're on, and then any kind of record deal you'll get. Like they'll there's a term we use in the industry like 360 you, so they'll like take money from your merch, take money from joint appearances. If you're going on and hang out down to the local auto shop and the local auto shop is paying you $200, the record label will take part of that $200. So and then on the other side of like if you're doing like a TikTok, the bad side of TikTok is that your art your music may not translate into actual real fans. They may just be followers,
yeah,
right? Someone just go on TikTok to watch you. But there's been multiple occasions where even people that have millions of Spotify views will try to book a venue. And of course, they'll book it because they got the Spotify stream, but not able to fill it or not even sell it out. You get people talked about these some of these big artists that will, you know, do or release ticket sales for their really big world tour, and then a week or two later, like do a public announcement saying they're not feeling good or do complications of the tour. I'm going to have to reschedule. In reality, it's because they didn't sell enough tickets and they don't want to say, hey guys, I'm actually only really popular on Twitter.
yeah.
Right? I think there's the app, but I legitimately don't think that people should look down on it because they all have their pluses. If you get really big on TikTok, like you might be able to actually sustain yourself more through brand deals because you have a stable following. Bad thing too is that TikTok like owns your content, right? So like if
Mm.
TikTok goes under or the connection is bad or whatever, then you lose your source of a revenue stream. So in any case, yeah, I don't think, but as far as people in the industry, no one looks down on all that stuff because at the end goal, at the end of the day, if you reach what you personally wanted to do, then like you made it.
And and I guess talent will win out, right? In the end, if you've got the talent and the perseverance and motivation, that should be the most important things, right?
Yes, and how much money you have. You can have a really bad talent as long as you have the gas
Right.
on at all times,
Yeah.
then you'll make it. But for people that want to live like a leave a legacy, um, that talks to what their singing ability or their musician ability, then then yeah, then talent will for sure will hopefully I'm just kidding. Will always persevere. It's sure hard talent, hard work. Like Michael Jackson was what like yeah sure he had money later, but he was talented and he worked
Yeah.
hard. That's it. That's it. Prince too. They talk about Prince was a janitor in order to make get studio time, and then all he did for years is just stay in the studio. That's
Mm.
why Prince has enough music that I think they said something like 200 years. Like he has a ton of, you know what I mean? But like he like that was his game. He goes, "This is my goal. My goal is to make enough music so that if I die, music I will always be listening to music. Next year, you will hear the new Prince album, and it'll be good. I've heard like his new stuff that recently released. It's amazing. Like he's the man. He did it. He figured it out.
Yeah, and it's like I've recently bought a couple of the kind of like the deluxe box set vinyl versions of Prince albums, and yeah, the amount of unheard content that's being released as well. You just don't understand, or you don't realize how prolific some of these artists have been
Yep.
until this material sees the light of day. And it's the fact that it hasn't seen the light of day up till now makes you realize, like you said, just not secretive, but just how much they must have been doing and constantly retrying and retrying and refining probably is the better word.
I do think, though, do you know when we talked about on the come up and you can't look down? I agree, we can't look down on anyone. But in Britain, but there's a big but. In Britain,
Yeah.
when you look at the likes of Britain's Got Talent and the X Factor in this country, we've had terrible acts. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Honey G. Dan, do you remember her?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Wagner,
Honey G.
Wagner, Frankie Kokoza, Cher Lloyd, who sung absolute bangers such as Swagger Jagger. No, I
Whoa.
can't. We can't. I can't get on board with it. No, 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 no.
But I
Well,
think
well, you
they
get
go on,
these are
Sean.
gimmicks.
Yeah,
So these are like
exactly.
these.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I think that what it is I think that maybe from like the reality TV perspective, it's all set up to get kind of like a pre-packaged 15 minutes of fame just for a quick buck, in my mind.
Mm,
Because I think
yep.
when you look at like the lasting talent that's come out of any kind of British TV shows, I think Leona Lewis, was she on one of them in the
Yeah,
early days?
yeah, she was.
Alexandra Burke, I think, as well.
Well,
She's
if we pick one of the big ones, Susan Boyle.
oh, Susan Boyle, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
To
I
be
mean,
fair, Susan
I mean,
Boyle.
and that was the classic thing about appearances, can be deceptive.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, ironically, actually, we just rewatched that audition on YouTube a little while ago, and it is also funny about how the whole reality TV falls into two things. Yes, absolutely, like you said, there's a lot of gimmicks, and I think that's probably what harms the reality side of things rather than it being from a reality beginning. But also, yeah, how we treat certain people. It's like, do they look like a rock star? Do they look like a music star? If they don't, are they overlooked? Right. Anyway, so I just realised we're about an hour in already.
Yeah, oh sorry, just cutting back to the whole Britain's Got Talent thing. That's what it was. The producers of Britain's Got Talent saw Susan Boyle, then heard the voice that came out of her, and thought, "What an angel!" And then opened their eyes and thought, "But how are we going to market her?" They're like, because there's no way we can make
Is she
money.
still
I
around?
think she is. I think she
Yeah,
just still.
yeah,
Yeah, I think she's still. It's a bit like there were the two opera singers. Do you remember? It was the man and the woman, and he came out with the really long hair. He was a large chap as well. Obviously, that was the whole thing behind why the voice coming out of him was apparently surprising. But I think they still do like the opera circuit in the UK and that
mm.
sort of thing. So I think it depends. I think that what it is you kind of only hear about them if they're still in the mainstream when they come off of these shows, and you don't really see the ones that go on to be successful in just a genre that you wouldn't do. So, I mean, for me, opera isn't necessarily something I would listen to as a regular occurrence. But I'm pretty sure that Paul Potts and the two that came on that I just mentioned are probably still in that circuit.
Something I wanted to mention at the start, so I mentioned now, is I know you've also had some good things said in the press. So the Huffington Post have called you sort of an artist to look out for, the kind of next big thing. Do you find pressure with that? I mean, obviously it's a great thing to have written about yourself, but do you also then find out that then also puts a bit of pressure on yourself, or do you try not to think about that? Do you welcome it and say, right, we just got to keep doing what I need to do?
Yeah, I think those kind of like compliments are like a good signpost to let me know I'm in the right direction.
Mm.
But I'll say I don't rely on those signposts because I know that the GPS that's inside me is telling me I'm in the right direction. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like those compliments are reassuring. There pressure. It makes me want to practice more. I love rehearsing. I know that sounds really weird, but I really do love rehearsing because I know that every time I rehearse, I get better. I think that's so cool. I don't know why I think that's so cool, but so it puts a little pressure on making sure I stay on my A game. But again, I think comments like that, they're good, but I think just keep using the GPS, and then not looking at those kind of words as a sign, even though those signs are good, but because you can get fat off of those compliments, and I've been
Right.
there
Yeah.
where you just like, you know what I mean? You go, oh yeah, I am the best. Like I'll never forget like my first bands ever. We played a show, and we had so many record labels coming up to us afterwards, and I'll never be. I was like, yeah, I was like, because it took a lot of hard work to get there, right? Like I
Yeah.
practiced every single day for 8 hours a day with this band. Like we like really put it. So to get that was great, but when the compliments stopped after the first EP we put out,
Right.
like that's not good to have to rely on that, right? So we had to just go like, hey, no one's calling us calling us about the next single that we just released. He goes, but we'll just keep working because we're not relying on them to give us give us validation to what we know to be true, that like we're good at what we do because we work really hard. So
And how did it feel when you put out your first single and you start seeing it kind of being featured in on websites and kind of seeing it being downloaded? How did that feel?
that was kind of weird because they started drawing up random photos of like my ex and like putting us
Oh,
in
really?
like grabbing old photos. Yeah, and then like this, if you Google like my name and the song "Tell Me," there's like an article that came out. It says SeanLoui writes a new song about X, and it was like from like my then current partner. So she was like, "What?" And her family was like, "What is this article?" I was like, "Baby," he's like, "I don't know." It's like it's taking off a life of his own. Like I don't know what to do. So I think I think I think it's funny. I forgot the question. And that story was so horrendous. What was what was your question? I'm sorry.
No, just about how you felt when you sort of started first seeing your material out there, actually kind of being released, featured in websites, being discussed. That, it must be a good but weird feeling, right?
Yeah, it feels good. I know I definitely do know it's all part of the process, right? Like you release something, you expect to hear some kind of feedback. I'm glad that it was great feedback. So and not like why is this kid doing music? So yeah, it does feel good. Again, it's like it's good to know that like you look up and you see the signs that signs is helping validate that you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't say this to Lou when I approached him about doing this podcast, but I imagined that our listening figures when we did it would be three: me, him, and his mum. I thought that would be.
Yeah, and then after the fourth episode, not even my mum listened.
Oh my god,
but
this is so
but
funny.
it's like I said, it's funny seeing it out there, and then obviously there's a really good community out there, and things happen, and it's just something that's really like at first it was really weird and unusual, but now it's just it feels good to know that something that sort of Lou and I are just trying to have a bit of fun putting together is actually kind of reaching people. So I think, Lou, I think you had something you wanted to put past Sean, didn't you? And then I thought before we go, I want to ask you, to talk about your latest single, and then we'll actually play out with it. But Lou, if you want to hand over to you, because I know you've got a specific thing to
Yeah,
throw.
now I feel like I'm going to do this with every guest that we have on in a similar style, but just related to kind of either the industry that they're in. We did this with Brendan from Unchefed, and I asked him underrated, overrated, a line on a particular food that we see that's a stereotype from the States.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of artists who are probably controversial for a couple of reasons, or have been controversial previously in the news, or had a come up that was controversial. I want you to give me a quick line on what your opinion is on all of them.
Okay, let's do it.
So we'll go one after the other. Okay, first one, kicking off with one of the Lil Pump.
Um, hmm.
I feel like that might say it
That's
all.
that's a comment, I think.
I'll say overrated, but overrated slightly because I don't see him doing anything right now. And like if you're he could have just been a trend, right? And then like he's gone. So yeah, overrated.
Yeah, I think it was the face tattoo trend that kind of did it, and then I think he's in a lot of debt now as well. Because I don't think he's put anything out in a while.
He's winning.
Miley Cyrus.
Underrated.
Yeah, you know what? I'm
She's
being
got a great
serious.
voice. She's
Yeah,
got a
I
great
think
voice.
she has as well. And also, can I just say, if Party in the USA comes on in a club, 100% that's the song that's getting me on the dance floor. There's only
Everybody's
two
going.
songs that do it.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, it's Party in the USA or Shakira's Hips Don't Lie. Next one, 6ix9ine.
Overrated.
I agree. And then like issues outside of music as well. This one, Bad Baby.
Underrated.
What was the song that she put out? Was it Gucci Flip Flop?
Wait, Bad Baby or Bad Bunny?
Yeah, no, Bad Baby. Sorry,
Oh,
sorry,
I
Bad
don't
Baby.
know
The
who that
one that
is.
came from
I don't know who that is.
came from like TikTok. I think if you googled her, you'd probably know.
Okay.
And then finally, Kanye West.
Underrated.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, because people don't realize that like Drake took Kanye West's 808s and Heartbreak and created a whole genre, and then people started following Drake, and Drake created a whole genre. But Kanye West is the creator of that genre. Like what he's done, and then like he did like My Twisted Dark Fantasy, or no, Life as Pablo, like Jaden Smith, right? Copied that same formula and created his own community, so like yeah, Kanye West is he's the man. I think I think when he after he dies, then I think we us as a culture as humans will recognize that yes, though he was crazy, like you can't have crazy without you can't have artistic without the crazy. And I think that we'll realize on some stuff that he was totally right. We'll be like, oh my gosh, you're right, Kanye. I'm sorry, but he'll get his flowers afterwards for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had this discussion with people at work talking about Kanye West, and I said, even if you just look at his biggest songs, he's responsible for some of the
Yeah.
greatest tracks of the last like 15 years, even longer. It's absolutely mental when you actually look at the music that he's put out. It's nuts. And like you said, I think Kanye West is a good character to finish on because you've hearkened straight back to the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
It's almost like we came full circle with you can't be artistic without the crazy.
It's true, man.
So before we do sort of wrap up, and we will play out with the song, but do you want to tell us a little bit about your latest release?
Yeah, it's called Right Back Again, and it's from is as I mentioned earlier that people don't listen to EPs anymore, so I'm releasing every single song as a single, and they're all great songs. So the first one is up first is called Right Back Again, and it's from the Kara EP. So I talked about in other albums, excuse me, about how I had like a really bad like pinched nerve, which left me almost immobile through the most of at least beginning of COVID. And so each album or each EP is about what was going on in different parts of my body. And so for the Kara EP, it's going to be talking about what's going on inside like my body, and just the pain and the back and forth of feeling better and not feeling better and having to still deal with this, just things. So breakup, of course, and just other heartache. So yeah, so this is the first song off the EP. It's really good.
Brilliant. No, and we'll link to it. And but like I said, we'll play it out. So before I hand over to you to wrap up, SeanLoui, actually, is there anything or anyone you want to shout out before we wrap up?
To my partner Jenna, hey Jenna, and and my mom is kidding. But also, yeah, I'm excited to see people. If people just DM me on my Instagram or write me, it will usually always be me that will respond back. So I'm super friendly. I would love to meet everybody. And yeah, let's do it.
Cool. And well, my last thing will be just thank you again for coming on the show. Now it's been brilliant hour or so. So thank you.
So thank you for having me.
Oh, do you want to plug your socials as well?
Oh, yes. So SeanLoui, SeanLoui. If you type that into any kind of social media, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, all stuff comes up as me. So yeah, feel free to add me, and I'll add you guys back.
Do you know what as well? Do you know why we've been doing this podcast? I actually said this to Dan just prior to getting onto this session. Your voice is just as soothing as music itself.
It really is nice and mellow.
It's amazing.
My voice, my voice, like
Yeah.
talking voice.
Just talking voice.
That's so funny.
I said to Dan, I was like, "This is amazing."
Thanks, man.
Just sound like someone that you could shoot the breeze with. We've been friends for like 5 years. That's how it sounds.
Hell yeah, I'm down. I like that.
This has been a very, very special episode of Casting Views. I'm hoping that I can get this bit right. Dan, what do you think?
Well, now you've said that, you're not,
Yeah.
are you? So go for it.
We know there's many podcasts from which you can choose, and we thank you for listening to Casting Views.
You said you knew that our love was see-through. Pain in your eyes, put the marks on your thighs. Amnesia to avoid the knowing. Remember, I love this baby. Breaking all the sand I fell to. Put the marks on your thighs.